there was actually a crazy crash that happened in Philadelphia. Let's go ahead and put some of the video up there on the screen as I talk over it. So you can see there were these insane Ring camera videos that were coming out that are just showing a major fireball that erupted literally as a crash, as this plane, small plane carrying 6 passengers actually literally crashed there in the middle of the road. So you can see the emergency lights, the fires that were all happening. Yeah, this is a particularly insane one because he's standing out there and it literally happens right outside of his front door. You can see the fireball that was right behind him. Absolutely terrifying. What we know about the crash so far is it's a little weird, some of the details. So I'm just gonna go ahead and read them to some of you. So they've named the crew, and there was actually a patient. It was an air ambulance in the northeastern Philadelphia area. So it was a medical jet, and it was including a girl from Mexico who had received treatment for a life-threatening illness, but it plummeted to the ground in northeast Philly, causing obviously a massive explosion, killing everybody on board, and at least one person who was on the ground. We don't know anything else. What we basically know is that they left Northeast Philadelphia Airport. It was headed for Springfield Branson National Airport, stopping in Missouri before eventually traveling to its final destination of Tijuana, Mexico. The girl was returning to Mexico after receiving treatment in the United States, and the victims of the crash are the captain as well as several other Mexican nationals. So definitely a tragedy, and still some open questions as to what the hell was happening, you know, with all of this. Can we put the next one, please, up on the screen? Just read some of the details out that I was talking about. It's called a quote-unquote angel flight en route to Mexico. All of the occupants were Mexican nationals. Plane was headed to Tijuana. So still some major stuff there, but
and a number of injuries in the area too, just because of it being in this major urban area, which is, you know, between that and then the fact that it just come on the heels of this horrific crash in DC is why it drew a lot of attention. Yeah, that's why everyone's paying attention.
I mean, rightfully, right?
Yeah.
This is, people are on edge. People are afraid to fly. And Donald Trump addressed some of the crash on Thursday, blaming DEI. I'm sure we'll talk about it afterwards. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
You can't have regular people doing that job. They won't be able to do it. But we'll restore faith in American air travel. I'll have more to say about that. I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they want them, they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so. This was in January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office. They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program.
On DEI and the claims that you've made, are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else. And there are things where you have to go by brain power, you have to go by psychological quality. And psychological quality is a very important element of it. These are various very powerful tests that we put to use, and they were terminated by Biden. And Biden went by a standard that's the exact opposite.
So there we go from Trump. I was watching it live. I was telling Krystal, and I was like, "Oh, he's really going to do it, isn't he?" And immediately starts pulling out DEI articles. My personal favorite was a response to that question whenever he's like, "So do you have any indication that it was DEI?" And he's like, "Not at this time. We don't." So, okay, all right, there we go. That's Trump. Let's put some of the details up here on the screen about the crash, because this is what's actually important, where we are learning a couple of things. Number one is that the helicopter, it seems, was not flying at the correct height. Now, there's various reasons for that. It could be that the screen of the air traffic controller was incorrect. It could be an instrumentation malfunction on the helicopter itself. It could be a communication error between the two. That is currently under investigation. But the most important thing that we have learned is that FAA shortage of staffing in the tower had one person doing the job of two. And what they said is that the helicopter was flying outside of its flight path, and that air traffic controller was juggling 2 jobs at the same time and was unable to keep the helicopter and the plane separated. It does seem, Krystal, that this has been going on for years now at Reagan National Airport, that they have had a major shortage in air traffic control, and we have also learned of a previous close call incident between a helicopter and a plane. So unfortunately, just seems like it was a matter of time. Too crowded airport, not enough air traffic control. Again, the helicopter thing I still can't get over. I have no idea why they are constantly doing helicopter training exercises over one of the most crowded, busiest, and difficult airports to land in the entire United States. It's crazy. I've been landing there for my entire adult life since I moved to Washington, D.C. when I was 18. I didn't even know that was the thing. It's probably better that we didn't know. But now, they suspended the flights, luckily, but it's like, how much is this happening all over the country?
It's completely insane. I had no idea that this was a thing that happened, and it seems completely insane. A lot of conspiracy theorists are making a lot of the fact that the helicopter, Pete Hegseth, our Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, said it was on a continuation of government training mission.
But that is a little weird, right? So what is that continuity of government mission? Is it, for what purpose? What were you doing flying in the middle of the night?
I'm with you on that one. I'm with you on that one. But the factors that we know. So first of all, nationwide, there's a massive air traffic controller shortage. Some 3,000 air traffic controllers we are short on. There's an airport in the Bay Area that's about to have 0 air traffic controllers, very close to San Francisco, not actual SFO, but a smaller airport nearby. This is a crisis because, and you can see potentially the results here, because what happened at Reagan is that, like you said, Saagar, for years they've been operating in this short-handed position where one person has been doing the job of 2, having to both direct the passenger jets in and also manage the helicopter traffic. I mean, that's insane. But they were only doing it they shouldn't be doing it at all, okay? But they were forced into this situation from a shortage. They were doing it after 9:30 p.m. because that's when the traffic really starts to ease up. On this particular evening, the supervisor had allowed someone to leave early so that the one-man band situation began much earlier in the evening. So the crash occurred just before 9 p.m. This should have been a time when typically they would have had 2 people in, each doing one job. So that was unusual. Then you also had, as you mentioned, the helicopter flying above its approved path. The fact that there are helicopters flying through here is insane to begin with, but these are some of the factors that go in. The other thing is, I learned a lot about DCA. It sucks because this is actually my favorite airport in the region.
It is the best.
It's close, it's easy. It's not that big of an airport facility, so it's very easy to get around in, et cetera. But the main runway there is actually the busiest runway in the entire country. And the reason is because there's only one real runway. It's already shorter than most major runways at major airports, but there's only really one main runway that larger jets can land on. So that primary runway is the busiest in the country. Then you couple that with the fact that you have all of these sensitive areas around here. You got the Pentagon, you got the White House, you got all kinds of monuments and other facilities that are nearby. So it effectively forces all of the air traffic into a very narrow corridor, predominantly just right over the Potomac River, which anybody, again, who's flown into that airport is kind of familiar. So it creates this really dense and very busily trafficked area. And those are some of the factors that seem to have contributed to this horrific death. But one indication we got is that the screens that the air traffic controller was monitoring and using to, keep everything safe, et cetera, may have misread the level that the helicopter was flying at. So the NTSB has determined the Black Hawk helicopter was flying at 325 feet. It was supposed to be at 200 feet. There is some indication maybe that the technical controls for the air traffic controller were misreading the height. That could have been a factor. But, to go back to DOGE and all of this sort of stuff, the air traffic controllers got the same fork in the road email pushing them to retire as everybody else in the federal government did. Then there was another Q&A email that went out that even more aggressively pushed everyone in the federal government, including air traffic controllers, hey, now would be the time to take this buyout and go on the dream vacation. This shows you, right? Federal government is not a business. Okay, maybe it made sense at Twitter for Elon to just like axe however, whatever 80% of the workers, et cetera. But I'm sure there are some areas in the federal government where you could definitely trim the staff back and where it wouldn't make that much of a difference and it wouldn't be that impactful. This is not one of them, right? This is a place where we need to hire thousands more air traffic controllers. And instead, they're getting the same emails that are like, hey, take the buyout and go on vacation and like enjoy living your life and double dipping on your federal government salary and whatever new gig you're going to take up as well. So that is where the sort of rubber hits the road in terms of what we actually need and rely on the federal government to do. And this just let me take a hatchet to the whole thing approach that we are seeing from our new God King Elon Musk.
I have no disagreement on that, and I think that is the absolute danger that they will fall into. I'll remind people that the lowest point of approval rating, actually, for George W. Bush, unfortunately, was not Iraq, even though it should have been. It was FEMA and New Orleans. Yeah, that was Hurricane Katrina. When people they feel like a disaster is not properly handled, they do not take kindly to it, and so that is, of course, the major caution for people who are supportive of DOGE and others is, look, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and cry about USAID or NGOs in California or anything like that. But if you find yourself in a position where you're either tangentially or somewhat to blame for a major disaster and or something else like this happens and they can trace it back to you, it can cause you some serious, serious problems. Last thing on this is that we are learning that this was just the latest and that a previous incident like this had happened. So let's go ahead and put C8, please, on the screen. A helicopter and an FAA plane actually almost collided in 2018 right next to DCA. The near collision was almost identical to Wednesday night's crash. The controller, in that case, working both helicopter, local traffic at the time.
Crazy.
And the reason why, again, is the short staffing of the FAA. Yeah, and that's another thing that you raised. 9 p.m. is one of the busiest times on the runway at DCA. Yeah. Tons of flights land.
I feel
those are usually the very last ones that come in. And
honestly,
so
I feel so bad for this person because they never should have been put in this situation. This
air
traffic
traffic
controller.
Maybe
they never should have been put in this situation, and now they have 67 lives on their conscience.
Yeah, they got it. The helicopter pilot. I mean, look, we got to learn. It may turn out that the guy didn't do, or the woman, whoever the air traffic controller didn't do anything wrong. If it's instrumentation failure on the helicopter, well, that's on the military, right? Because why are you not inspecting your equipment before that happened? Or, and this is the other one, the helicopter pilot, I mean, if anybody's to blame, it's probably her, because if it's not instrumentation failure, then it's about communication. And also, a lot of people have been raising a lot. They're like, what, you really miss a passenger jet? I mean,
the video is insane.
Yeah, the video, it's like,
it looks like they go right
look,
for
I'm
it.
not a helicopter pilot, so I'm trying not to pass judgment. But to any layman who's watching that, I mean, it's basically a beeline, right?
The thing that's crazy to me is you see all these helicopter pilots that are like, just imagine, like it's at night and you're just looking out this little tube and you see these lights and it's like, okay, well, if it's that difficult, why are we doing this, right? If it's like you can't see anything and you have no idea there's a regional jet right freaking there that you're flying into, maybe we shouldn't be having these helicopters flying all around one of, an incredibly busy airport at 9 o'clock at night. Like you said,
they're wearing night vision. The allegation is they may have been wearing night vision goggles. So and they're like, oh, it's really hard to see. I'm like, okay, fine, but do that in Iraq. You don't need to do it over here, all right? Like, what are we training for? Exactly, gets to the whole continuity.
What are we training for, guys? Let's find out.
I would like to know. What was that crazy thing in the Obama administration? Jade
down in Texas.
Jade Helm? Was that it?
I think that is
someone's going to remember. That was a whole thing. Texas mobilized the National Guard. Actually, as a Virginia resident, we should mobilize our National Guard to protect us from the United States military, protect our airspace, keep the government off our runways. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show, ad-free, and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.